You're not here. We are ready.
I'd like to call the meeting of July 6th County Commissioners to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please join me in a moment of silence. Dr. Galloway is now back with us, and unfortunately is not able to continue his young life. So please join me in a moment of silence while we think about that. Thank you very much. This item,
is your microphone on, Mr. Doherty?
Mic on.
Is your mic on, please?
the first item on our agenda is public comment. And I believe I recognize Laura Kelly. Did you have something for public comment today?
No, thank you.
Okay, this is the only time you have to have public comment. Okay. Let me explain. I must explain something.
Mr. Doherty, if you're going to speak, you're going to need the microphone, please.
All right,
thank you.
sorry. I must explain something. That we have an item on the summary of items to approve a proposed ordinance for supplemental appropriation for pesticide fertilizer inventory. We will not be able to discuss that today because it was not put on as an agenda item. We will discuss it next week, but if you have any comments with regard to the information that will be posted on this would be the time for you to put that in. Or you can come back next week. What's your pleasure?
Next week?
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. All right, we have about 5 minutes for public comment. Yes.
Just
No, you need to come down and use the microphone, please.
Kathy Sherman. Oops. Kathy Sherman from Brewster. Last week I did ask you to put on the agenda about the questions of CVEC and CLC and fairly broad. Should I bring that up at new business today?
I think I suggested to you that if you intended to put something in the agenda, you should be specific as to which questions you're asking and whether or not it's appropriate for us to respond to it. And I think I told you that it would have to be in writing.
I don't think last week, but I did threaten to write a letter, so. All right.
Thank you. All right, we have a what? Okay, we got 5 minutes for public comment.
I just wanted to note something to the commissioners and ask them to investigate it. I was reviewing the conflict of interest law, and I know that the chairman has made many times has asserted that he does not have a conflict of interest in serving as both the appointed representative to Cape Light Compact and as chairman of the county commission. In the conflict of interest law, which is 268A, section 15A, there is under the section for county government, 15A says members of a county commission or board, restrictions on appointments to certain positions. Section 15A, no member of a county commission or board shall be eligible for appointment or election by the members of such commission or board to any office or position under the supervision of such commission or board. Mr. Doherty serves as the appointed representative of the county commission, and he also serves as a sitting member of the county commission. According to 15A, it appears that he is ineligible to serve as the appointed representative. I'm not sure whether this has been addressed by county council. I did run this past the State Ethics Commission, one of their investigators who instructed me to send him a complaint. I asked him if this was limited to issues of personal corruption or, inappropriate gifts, that sort of thing, personal enrichment. And he said, no, absolutely not. And I said, does this say in plain English what I think it does? And does it appear to preclude this arrangement, which I've just described to you? And he said, it certainly does appear that way. Please send me a formal complaint. I've drafted a letter. I haven't sent it yet. But I wanted to make full disclosure that because, well, frankly, we haven't gotten very far with the county commission in terms of having our concerns addressed, and they are an impartial body, and this is their job, so I'm going to make a formal complaint. But I think you should review that with your counsel. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I think we need to start on the rest of our agenda. And on our agenda today, we have...
Microphone, please, Mr. Doherty. Is your mic on?
Go ahead. We have, a special commission on county governance, Rob O'Leary and Henri Rauschenbach. And we should come forward, please. First of all, let me express my appreciation for your willingness to come. Good to see both of you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. We're just really here to answer any concerns. We met late this afternoon, earlier this evening with the Assembly of Delegates and let them know that we're out there and that you have put together a draft charge and that we are preparing to look at the county government and maybe come up with a series of recommendations in terms of changes that might be forthcoming. And we had I think a healthy exchange, and I don't know, I characterize it as fairly supportive.
Well, I think there's an interest among most of the members of the Assembly that it'd be a bit of a fresh sort of perspective.
Right.
Not, marred in the usual. There seemed to be a sensitivity among several of the delegates that this not be a commissioner-driven sort of vehicle whereby you would have constituted the body that would be deliberating with Senator Leary and myself on this. We suggest, well, we're certainly amenable to that. There's no preconceived course that we're on. We're not driving the train. We're open and would look to put a group together. But I think generally there was a sense that this could be productive. It could mesh with the 5-year charter review process that the Assembly has under its purview with the charter. We as well suggested that a lot of the sort of perspective has been from the county down to the towns in reality, that we thought, Senator Leary and myself, that we could also look at the state, because there is compromised delivering services. You've got three, the towns in the state compromised delivering services. You've got this county that sits as a regional body. Are there some collaborative things that are being done on the outside versus on the inside? We think that's a different sort of thing. We discussed that a tiny little bit. I did most of the talking on that, of course, which I always do, but I think we left them in good fettle, and I think
good what?
Fettle. I think the only point that is maybe salient is there was an effort, I think, on their part, some to compare this to the review of the Cape Cod Commission, the 21st Century Project, where we're going to be with that, and the Commission was, of course, a fairly controversial piece and a lot of grinding in the community on that, the business community and development, all that stuff, and there was a fairly elaborate process that went on. I don't think the Senator and I view this as elaborate a process, from a resource intensity point of view. There was, the representative from the delegate from Harwich was suggesting that, the ads in the paper, you want to serve, etc. You did a lot of filtering on that. I think the only thing would be maybe, we've sent along sort of some names would like to be considered. I think probably would maybe with the acquiescence of the press afford another 2 weeks or something for people that might read about this and might say, hey, I would like to be involved if I could. Allow that, and then I think we'd come back with a list and we'd look to start this in August, and then do some intense stuff in September and October, and at a meeting level, and then maybe some hearings in November and December before the Christmas season starts, and try and put something out in January at the beginning of the year.
Henri has laid it out, I think, very well, and I would only add that one of the concerns that kept sort of emerging in our discussions with different members of the Assembly was this question of who picks people and how is that process how does it play out? And I think in the original charge that you gave us, we recommend, and I think you appoint, is that there was some concerns about that.
Well,
I don't know whether you want to revisit that or but that was, I believe,
okay, there was also an administrative thing that we
right.
to vote the charge.
Right.
And before we go forward, do you have any comments on the draft charge that you had?
That's the first conversation.
Well, that's I think a key one from our perspective, and I think, frankly, from the Assembly's perspective as well. And
The draft charge in and of itself is fairly extensive.
it's pretty broad. I think we were both struck by that. Pretty open-ended.
If I could just, and I think that one of the delegates probably is one that voiced similarities to the Cape Cod Commission had said that when that Blue Ribbon Committee was formed, it was truly an independent committee. Commission staff was able to attend. They were there to answer questions if they came up, but they were not members, sitting members, nor did the Cape Cod Commission have any say over who was appointed on that board. And I thought those were very good points, and I do think that to a degree this was a draft, so you can pare this down, and I don't have a problem with you being independent in your choices, that it comes down to your judgment. The other, and I guess the other thing would be if you need our assistance in administration, how can we make sure that those lines are clearly drawn and not giving the appearance that it's just for show and we really have more to do with it than that. Oh, the other point I wanted to make now that I'm looking at Jerry Rappaport, at one of our meetings when this first came up, the League presented us with a document, and I don't have it now, but it was really how the recommendations the League had for the rollout of this commission, and here it is. And I thought that, I'm not sure if this is exactly, they really have like a list of different things to keep in mind about the public openness, making sure that the public was, that was plenty of advertising, that people were aware that this was going on. There were a lot of very nice guidelines that I think were like already paid for you. So if this is not exactly the charge, I'm sure, Jerry, you can get a copy of it. Oh, this is it. We can give this to you.
All right, thanks very much.
Just so you can look at it. Thank you.
So is it my understanding that you do not want to appoint the members of this? Is that, or do you want to continue to?
I think that we
I think you're required.
We're required to appoint, based upon any committee that's formed in the county. I believe we're responsible for appointing. However, your recommendations are the ones that would drive that. We still have the administrative.
I know, what it says is in the charge. It does say that the co-chair will make recommendations to the board as to membership. But I don't see, I personally would rather not appoint, in terms of individuals. It would seem to me if you came to us with a list of individuals and said these are the people you want to appoint, that we would just simply endorse that.
Yeah, I think that's
if it requires a vote, we could endorse the recommendation without actually being a part of the interview process or even talking about the individual candidates, but simply to accept your recommendation.
Right, that's fair. So
That's what I think we should do.
We'll go out 2 weeks, then Rob and I'll meet again. We'll see if there are other folks that have an interest. We'll discuss that. We'll sharpen our list, and then part of the idea here as well, what we have sent to you, it's not quite clear that all of them would say that this is a little adventure they want to go on either, so.
When we did this before, Rob, remember we made up that list and we had, as I recall, we were talking about having, thirds, 1/3 for, 1/3 against, and 1/3 in the middle, so to speak, so we get everybody in the room at the beginning rather than waiting until the end and having them come in and say, we didn't agree with this or that. Because that didn't work.
That's rather
diabolical. So-called minority report.
Mr. Chairman, in some of that language that you're referring to that expands the process, where it says, say halfway down the page, that they, as part of the commission's process, it should. We might want to change that to may. It may want to examine the following, or may identify services rather than should. It's more of some ideas as to what you might want to do rather than just this is what you need to do.
I don't think any of that is nettlesome at all. I mean, in general, if you just discuss the assembly, you'd pick this up, and I think that's pretty obvious. So I don't have an issue with shall there.
Okay.
Okay, well, it looks like...
I have one other question. How many members were you thinking?
We were thinking in the range of 15 to 20 people.
Really?
So we get about 2/3 of them showing up most of the time.
I mean, that's...
Because that's scripted.
Yeah.
That sounds like...
One thing the Senator here and I have discussed is what would you be expecting, from us in terms of the structure of this process? Would you like us to sort of do a little rollout of, what meetings we think would have, where would have them, regional, et cetera, 3 or 4 meetings? We'll be at the point in the next couple of weeks where we'll sit down and sort of format. Mm-hmm. What exactly we'd do, what our outreach would be, where we'd go. You'd like to be kept apprised of that? Would you like to have a series of meetings like once every 2 months or something, a little update, or not necessary, or?
Bill, may I for a second? If you remember, if you appoint the committee, so they recommend 15, 20 individuals, then you appoint them, you are now creating meetings that have to be posted, public meetings, so that a schedule would be great, Henri, if you would develop a schedule so that we can take care of the posting at this end for you, and if you need somebody there to take minutes, we can provide staff there, so this way you didn't sign up for that, so we can...
we're subject to the open meeting law.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
So if you tell us your schedule, we'll post it, and we can provide somebody to take your meeting minutes.
I would ask that you give some consideration as to location that you would find to be useful. I know that in time past, we've gone to different parts of the Cape, and sometimes that works out, sometimes it don't. And we've all been through this, so think in terms of where we would get the most opportunity, in your opinion, for public participation. I was grateful that you did reach out to the Assembly and talk to them because they are an important part of the political process in here.
Absolutely.
And we don't want to put them on the basis, as you say, that this is being completely driven from without. Hopefully
that concern is out there, so I mean, we heard it this afternoon, and I think we need to address it.
And as I say, there's a lot of all of these points are made by the League of Women Voters as far as the open process, being transparent, establish deadlines, where it's going to be. It's just a nice little summary, and I think that you could agree to look at it.
We don't have a meeting on July 27th, and I was suggesting that the 20th of July or August 3rd might be dates you could consider coming back with.
The 20th wouldn't work for me, but
August 3rd?
August 3rd would work.
By giving us a date, that gives us a...
August 3rd.
Would that be an evening meeting as this, or would that be?
It's an assembly day, so you can do it nobody's day, it's your call.
So for August 3rd, you would like a list of people who have agreed
And anything.
at least to be nominated.
Well,
That's all we're really doing is...
And an outline. We'd have to tell those that would have an interest what the time commitment would be.
Right.
So we'll,
We have to organize that.
we'll put all of that together. So, but I would just need to know if that's going to be, you know, a morning.
When is better for you?
You know, I can build my schedule around it because I
it's open.
camp. You know.
Okay. And you
I'm pretty free.
Oh, I don't know if you want to go there.
Why don't you pick, early in the morning to get them in and out, like at 9?
Yeah, early.
do it at 9.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, let's say about 10
All
o'clock.
right.
10 o'clock is
All
fine.
right, very good. August 3rd.
You're awake by then.
Huh?
You're awake by then.
Now.
He might be on his boat.
General outline, what you're planning to do. The people.
Well, you've given us a charge, so we're just going to feed that. I mean, this is, this is pretty broad, but I think essentially we're going to take this and put some names next to it of people who have some experience, some interest, some commitment, who represent, geographically much of the Cape, and then see if we can round up 20 people who are willing to do this.
And the 3rd would be the day that would officially be constituted.
Right.
Yes.
So that would then trigger. Because I have said I did email Mark that the one subject matter that I, in the interest of full transparency, would have a conflict with is the energy part. Only because I have 3 clients in the energy business, one of which is Northeast Utilities, several others, so including one on the Cape. So I want to disclose that, and I would recuse myself from
Right.
that. The others are all fine now. So at that point, I would file a notice on that.
The only other thing, and I'm sure you probably have this on your list, but I do know that there are some former members of the Assembly that expressed interest, so that would be good to have, maybe former commissioner other than yourself.
Right.
And, any other, in the town representation,
Right.
either present, currently serving, or former.
There have been some people that have put their names forward, and I think I forwarded.
If you could, but if you could put those all together first, that would be helpful.
Just so that you can consider.
Yeah. All right.
And I think
All right. Very well.
Excellent.
So August 3rd will
We'll
start.
get back to you with something by August 3rd.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you very much. Thanks for your...
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right.
Beautiful week here on the Cape.
Huh?
We got a beautiful week here on the Cape. Get to back out.
Gonna go enjoy it.
I know.
The weekend started
Maybe we'll
today.
be out there pretty soon too.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay,
It's just business. Just general business.
okay, we have the needs action. Do we have anything else? All right, we can move to needs actions
No.
now.
And I had no.
Okay, I wanted to hold on item 4 because I think there's some questions that I believe are going to get clarity on, and we could get that by the next meeting. But other than that, I'd be ready to accept the motion for the others.
I'll move approval of the summary items,
With the exception.
with the exception of number 4.
Second.
Okay, all those, is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that's done. Okay,
We're going to take off number 4?
Next week.
We're going to table until next
table,
week.
because we need,
Might as well say what it
we also
is.
need to put it in as an agenda item so we can discuss it.
Well, I know, I had written to all of you to say that I thought that this was supposed to be an agenda item, and Mark said it was basically a discussion. He understood that I was, they came and presented why they needed the money. We said, okay, he just wanted to see if there were those revenues available. And
That's true, but after I read it, I had a chance to review it, there were some questions that were raised. It can be answered by, by sending over to Patty.
Okay.
And then if we have it as an agenda item, because it wasn't, I guess it isn't clear to me as to why it why it isn't considered to be an agenda item and needs action. I didn't get clarity on that. Maybe we can take care of that by just posting it, from now on as with the agenda as items that we're going to be discussing. But because it's not there, because there's questions that I think that deserve to be answered before we go over to the assembly, and let's say to what I call to proactively prepare for questions that I would anticipate. I think it might be useful for us to get them answered ahead of time.
The proposal, yes, I would agree. The proposal itself talks about funding and then matching funds.
Right.
And I think
matching funds from the Cape Cod Commission.
right. So, but I think we were clear about what the source of the county funds were going to be, what actual funding line item that money was going to come from. That was the question at the end of the meeting, which is why we're going to hold it over to this week. So I think this is the proposal for the pesticide fertilizer inventory. And so we're going to table it. I would move, you have to make a motion to table. But I think we should table until next week where we can talk about it, because we can't talk about it tonight.
Okay. And would you make sure, and Maggie, would you make sure that it appears as an agenda item so it can be discussed?
Yes, but if you don't mind, I just want to make sure I understood that you're tabling somebody
Number
to
4.
table.
The vote of number 4.
Okay.
So that we can have it as an agenda item with discussion with Patty or Paul.
I'll have one over there. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
And also Mark, so we can get
Yes.
clarity on where the...
Yes, Mark needs to be there.
Public comment, you should give
There's
an
a question.
There's a question on
Well, I was just wondering, I came specifically.
Come to the microphone.
Yes.
Sorry about that.
Good evening.
Oh, let me turn it up for
You
you.
have to just press that.
And please, give your name and your...
Yes, I'm Eileen Gunn from Falmouth. I did come to speak specifically about this issue, so I'm just wondering if there's any format tonight to say anything?
Yes, we had, I hope to put it in public comment, but I think we could, and we could probably put it in the business, yeah.
Is now a good time?
Sure.
Okay. Well, I was just, I had read the proposal, and I've been involved in this issue of toxics and environmental policy for many years of my career, and I think there's some other routes to consider, especially given the amount of money that we're talking about. So some of the points I would just like to make is, what's currently known about pesticide leaching into groundwater and soils and aquifers all over the country based on U.S. Geologic Survey investigations of a number of, they've looked at like 14 major hydrographic areas of the United States, showing many pesticides like Roundup and glyphosate getting into ground and surface waters in every type of aquifer at low levels. So there's a lot of data on what we know about what happens to pesticides. And then on the Cape specifically, we have a lot of data from the Silent Spring Institute showing pesticides in household dust. We know that synthetic lawn care, chemical lawn care, uses a lot of synthetic nitrogen, which leaches quickly into our estuaries. So for many reasons that we don't need complete data on, we could move to an organic approach on the Cape. And when I worked for the Toxic Use Reduction Institute up at UMass Lowell, I funded, through a grant program, many communities across Massachusetts to pass organic land care policies, do demonstration sites, do public trainings of officials, and I would like to see us move that kind of money into proactive solutions that will reduce nitrogen, organic land care conserves water, and also reduce pesticide use. So it's being done. You can have organic green lawns without pesticides. You can reduce all kinds of impacts. So I'd like to see our municipalities be an example to the citizens first. I've already been talking to Falmouth, as you know. Marblehead has gone organic, Wellesley, the whole region of Westford up in northern Massachusetts, Gloucester, North Shore, Swampscott. So we can do that here too, and spend the money on training our DPW folks, educating the towns and creating demonstration sites, and then moving towards a homeowner education program. But I don't see a lot of value in continuing to monitor groundwater impacts and things like that, because that's not the only impact. There's all kinds of ecological impacts to non-target species and pollinators that we're not going to be monitoring. And then at the end of it, we're going to try to make decisions based on incomplete information. So I just want to put that out there as a potential other concept to consider that funding for. That would, because it takes 3 years to transition chemically intensive lawns to organic. We'd be no further along in 2 years if we study it more.
Well, this is...
We can't discuss this.
Okay, those are good. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay.
Just a quick question now. Would you be able to come back next week when it's on our agenda? Or
What day is your meeting?
Wednesdays.
I'm in Vermont, sorry.
What time are we having a meeting next week?
We decided
10 o'clock.
in the morning.
But I could get you something in writing.
That would be,
Please.
Okay.
that would be very
Okay,
helpful.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, we've had that vote. Have you bid any books? I guess we have.
Yes. I'm being all over the place. No, I attended the Wampanoag powwow this weekend on the 4th of July. As you all know, our Native American neighbors, our hosts, if some people might, they may refer to themselves as our hosts, have their annual powwow where the New England tribes are all invited to come, and there were 5 different tribes there. I was there all day Saturday, thinking I was going to be there for a few hours, and it really just turned out to be a very good time, very enlightening. I think that I do hope that everyone on the Cape attends that at least once. It is just a very special event, and it is a very special cultural event. It's a celebration of their past and how they're grappling with their future and going forward and creating their policies to guide them and their youth. And it was a real family-oriented day, great food, a lot of different Native American food was being served, and also very interesting discussions. There were a lot of vendors there. Many of them came from Arizona, and neighboring places, different jewelry makers that were all American Indian. So it was very interesting to have conversations with them about casinos, about how they are maintaining their viability. All in all, it was a great day, and I just highly recommend it. I do hope. I've been wanting to attend that for 12 years. My daughter and I finally got up there, and it was just a nice place to be. It was a really good feeling, so I highly recommend it to all visitors on the Cape in the future. The traffic really wasn't that bad getting in and out, and it's worth it. It's worth doing at least once. It was a real celebration. So that was a wonderful time, and of course, wonderful 4th of July celebrations all over the Cape. I'm sure everybody's attended them. And this afternoon, Chairman Doherty and myself, unless you'd like to go up to Boston to testify.
I wanted to testify through your grace.
Yeah, on behalf of the counties in Massachusetts. Some of there was 21. There are now 7 still acting counties. We are the most viable of those 7, but all of them do run a registry of deeds, and some of that money goes into the state's general fund, and for those that are still running county programs, they go into running their own registry of deeds plus programs. And it was a $10 fee increase of registry of deeds, which has not been increased since 1981. So it was $10 in the beginning and remains that. So now we were up there giving a pitch that that was a good thing, and it would only be helpful to not only the counties, but for the counties to deliver regional services and to be more efficient in helping the towns, meet the right economy of scale on some of these services, so that they could get on with the business they need to get on, and we could take off those services if we so choose, and as we already do. So it was an interesting day up there. There were many other testimonies of many other bills going forward. So, and seeing that we were practically the last call, it'd be good to hear them all.
Thank God that you caught the ride, because they probably be waiting to be heard.
So, anyway, so that was an interesting day.
Was there any discussion or questioning about how those funds might be used by Barnstable County? Because our plan was to use it to help fund CMED.
No, they did not ask exactly how. They just said, one woman, Representative Harrington, did ask, would these be just to run the Registry of Deeds? And yes, they would, but any excess would be put into, the governing of those counties, and the fact that you could then really target regional services that the towns need to have done. They were happy to think that, because in the end you're having a savings and a cost savings to the taxpayer. So that was clearly understood, but there was no specifics as to, like, if you get this money, you need to tell us what you're going to do with it exactly.
Well, it's sort of ironic that not too many years ago the legislature voted to abolish so many counties.
Now the
counties that are surviving are beginning to realize that there are regional services that the counties could provide that would have economies of scale.
Right.
If they have the ability to.
Right. And they have nothing to do with real town character. So.
Well, I think it was an education. I believe it was an education for those who were in the committee, as well as for those who were in the audience, with regard to the things that the counties do. So I thought it was, although we did get an opportunity to visit and find out a lot more about how the process is used up there.
Yes.
It was
and all the different bills that are before
time well spent.
Yes, it was.
I think that's all we had.
I think so.
We have a report from
Mark is not here. He was in Boston with the two of you.
Right.
I'll hand out his report. He prepared the hand.
Okay, let's see, CMED, they made a contribution of $50,000 to the Sheriff's Department. That's Cape Cod Healthcare, the ongoing operation of comprehensive medical emergency dispatch. Cape Cod Healthcare also asked that the Sheriff provide information on the number of calls directed to Cape Cod Hospital Falmouth over the last 5 years. Finance Department, the county received the audit results for the court rental expenses for 2010. That's FY. No adjustments were made on any expense items submitted by the county, which is a good thing, including administrative expenses. Therefore, the county will receive court rental income for FY 2012 of $1,377,864.41. The NACO prescription drug discount program results for May 2011 show that out of a total of 910 users took advantage of the program, it's up 11%, and the second highest count since the highest use of October 2009. These 910 customers filled 2,328 prescriptions and saved a total of $32,611 for the month, the highest monthly savings total since the program started in January of 2007. The Human Service Department, the county is partnering with the Department of Public Health on a grant application to the Centers of Disease Control. The funding would enhance the quality of life for the residents of Barnstable County in 3 areas: healthy eating, active living, and safe physical environments and tobacco control. And that's his report. Do you have anything with your system? Okay, do you have any new business?
New business.
Yes, Mr. Britt.
I understand.
Could you turn that on, please?
Sorry, how do I push?
There you go.
Okay. I understand that from one of your prior meetings that this is the appropriate time for us to ask you to place something on your agenda for a subsequent meeting. I'd like to ask you to place on your agenda the citizens petition that you've received of May 27th, which has over 300 signatories. I just want to note, as part of the reason why I think you should place this on your agenda, I think it's been 14 or 15 weeks, that consecutive weeks that various members of the public have been trying to place these topics on your agenda without success. You have in your possession letters of April 27th, May 25th, June 12th, June 15th, and June 21st addressing all of these topics. You also have proposed resolutions, 5 of them dated May 4th, which in your absence, Mr. Chairman, when one of the other commissioners was chairing the meeting because you were delayed, the other 2 sitting commissioners promised us that they would need a couple of weeks to review these, but they promised us that they would act these. We specifically asked, we would address them. We specifically asked that they vote them either up or down after some discussion as they felt appropriate, but we asked that they please be proposed and voted, and they assured us that they would. That's been a couple of months now. So we respectfully ask that you place the citizens petition of May 27th with over 300 signatories, 1 from Connecticut, over 300 from Barnstable County, on your agenda. Thank you.
Mr. Rogers.
Just as explanation, are you now discussing the previous suggestion for an agenda item? My understanding from the last meeting was that when a proposal was made, you would discuss it here and now? Mm-hmm. No, that's not true?
We can take your request. I would respectfully suggest that you identify the questions that you want us to address with regard to it. The first rule of a body is that we would have jurisdiction over something that we would be reviewing.
Well, my question relates to Mr. Bibler's request for an agenda item. I thought you would be discussing that right now. No, it's not.
Commissioners, read your policy.
Yes, I understand. Yes,
It's right here.
I think given the fact that the other 2 commissioners that were referred to were these 2 commissioners here, since Mr. Doherty wasn't there, and we did say that we would bring this up. So please be assured that we will have this discussion through Mark on the agenda, and I do believe that we should take a look at these and resolve them one way or another instead of having them out there and hanging. I'd like to do that within 2 weeks, please. So next week you should be able to have an answer as to when those will be reviewed.
Thank you. I do have an agenda item also.
Okay.
I wonder if at a future meeting you could discuss your rationale for your belief that you do not have any authority over CVEC or CLC. Because as I read the charter, your charter, it seems to indicate something exactly opposite that. And I wondered if you could please offer your rationale, because at this point all that's been stated is, as I understand it, that you do not have any authority, but there's been no explanation of why you believe that.
I think that's a very fair question, and I think it needs to be addressed for clarity for the public as well as for the Board of Commissioners and those serving the county in various positions, so that we all know where we're standing. So I think that's a very reasonable request.
And will that be discussed next week also?
It will be discussed within, I would hope to get that on the agenda within 2 weeks, and I think that we could be prepared to have an open discussion about that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Can I offer another agenda item? My track record's not very good at having my suggestions accepted, so I just wanted to formally make Section 15A of the Conflict of Interest Law, 268A. I'd like that to be an agenda item. The State Ethics Commission has not issued a ruling. They haven't issued a formal opinion. All you have to go on is my recounting to you my conversation with one of their investigators But in plain English, Section 15A states that any member of a county commission or board shall not be eligible for appointment or election by the members of such commission or board to any office or position under the supervision of such commission or board. And I just want to make very clear that one of the aspects of my conversation with the State Ethics Commission, two aspects. One was, I said, is there case law that I'm unaware of that interprets the entire conflict of interest law through the lens of personal enrichment and conflict? He said no. And the other thing I said is, it appears to me as a layman that this does not say that the entity on which that appointed representative serves has to be under the supervision or the direction, I think, supervision of the commission. It only says that the representative is under the supervision of the county commissioners. Well, I think...
Okay, I have to stop you there.
Yep.
The reason I have to stop you there is that we have...
There you go. I just want to enunciate my reasons for thinking that it merits your consideration and as an agenda item. Thank you.
We have no further business. Except to sign.
For signing. So I'll make a motion that we adjourn. Aye. Thank you.